We have another rousing victory today for the Green Bay Packers, as the Packers literally destroyed and literally defend the Miami Dolphins. This game was not close. Just not. Yeah, the game ended 30-17. The game was over long before that. Even though the Dolphins got a little things going in the third, again, just not enough. Just absolutely not enough. And we'll get to it, how they really lost, but even from the first time a Miami Dolphin player touched the ball, the game was over. They look like they were outmatched completely, and again they are beaten by the cold once again. And the Packers are now 9-3, and the Dolphins are 5-7, holding on to a desperate plea for a playoff spot. But let me know what you think down below, and let's get to it. The Packers dominated once again. As I said in my preview video, the Packers were going to dominate the Miami Dolphins, and they did, because they're just a better team. They're flat out better team. Now, yes, the Packers had a bunch of pre-snap penalties that are just getting infuriating. It's like everybody on the defensive line had an offside call. There's always a couple people that had false start penalties today. There was a really bad roughing or unnecessary roughness penalty that was called late in the game that really wasn't necessary. There was also a blatantly missed PI called against the Dolphins that was not called. I mean, Christian Watson absolutely mugged. But even without those, the Packers still won. Josh Jacobs, sure, didn't have a lot of rushing yards, only like 19 carries for 43 yards, but he had 4 catches for like 74 yards in the receiving area. He was great tonight. Jordan Love, again, nearly threw for 300 yards, had 2 touchdowns, and again, another game in a row with no interceptions. Again, the Packers are starting to look like they were last year, just slowly but surely. If only they could work on those pre-snap penalties, they would be a lot better off. No turnovers today caused by the Packers, but they did cause a pivotal turnover and downs late in the third that really ended the Miami Dolphins' hopes of winning. They had 5 sacks as a team today. They really got to Tua all day long. I mean, Tua didn't have a bad day, but the team was just outmatched. They couldn't get anything going in the first half. I mean, it was 24-3 at halftime. And sure, the Packers only scored 2 field goals in the second half, but that was enough. It was enough. Absolutely was enough. Jayden Reed had 2 touchdowns today. He played great. He had some really nice catches. Jordan Love, like I said, had 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs had a nice touchdown as well. And just the Packers were great. The Packers were great all day long. It was not close. And again, the Dolphins, sure, their offense moved the ball at times, but it started off badly from the word go. I mean, the first time a Dolphin player handled the ball, he muffed the punt, and the route was on. Packers quickly score a touchdown, and it's quickly 7-0. Then before you know it, Miami can't get anything going, and then it's 14-0, just like that. And then they're able to kick a field goal at the very least. But then they give up another touchdown. And then the Dolphins screw up at the end of the second half and allow the Packers to get within field goal range with less than a minute to go and minute 19, I believe, and 2 timeouts. They're able to get down the field far enough to get a field goal, and that's 24-3. I mean, that's a really crushing end. The one thing I have to really mention about NBC tonight, NBC messed up for sure. After subjecting us to the abject horribleness that was Shabuzi for the musical performance for the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears game, then a decent, albeit auto-tuned performance by Lainey Wilson for the Cowboys and Giants game, to only give us 20 minutes of Lindsey Sterling playing violin. And she looked great. She's a great performer. She's a really good musician. And the people at home get jobbed. They get 20 seconds. NBC thought it was more important to talk about Alec Ingold, who, yes, is from Wisconsin, played for Bayport, was originally a quarterback, moved to running back at Wisconsin-Madison, and then, of course, now an NFL player. It's like, yes, it's nice to know he has ties to the area, but NBC thought it was more important to show that rather than show the best musical performance of the day by far. from what I've heard, her talent and musicianship and just performance was far better than what we got from that Shabuzi. That was just horrendous, absolutely horrible. I mean, he's definitely not a great live musician. And Lainey Wilson, while she's a very talented artist for sure, and has a really excellent voice, let's just be honest, is probably a bit auto-tuned for her liking. But again, I don't want to stray too far from the football, but it had to be said, not showing Lindsey Sterling at all for more than just 20 seconds was a disgrace. Just, I don't know what NBC was thinking. It just doesn't make any sense. But we go to the second half, and Miami's starting to move the ball a little bit. Devon Shane had a touchdown, and he was really on the ball today. I mean, he didn't only had he had under 20 rushing yards again, which he had last week. But again, he's a great receiving running back, and especially if you have him in a PPR type fantasy league, he had 10 receptions for 50 yards. If you're in a full point PPR league, that's 15 points right there. Then add on a touchdown and then a couple receiving or rushing yards, and you get 22 points. I mean, if you look at his stats, he didn't have that great a game, but if you go to fantasy, it's wow, he was amazing. Jalen Waddle didn't have the best game either, but I mean, fantasy-wise, he was reliable. Had a couple receptions, had over 50 yards, didn't have a touchdown, but he got a 2-point conversion. Tyreek Hill got a bobbled ball for a touchdown. So if you had him in fantasy, you're wow, I wasn't expecting that, and you're happy. Tua threw for the most yards he's thrown all year for 365 yards. But again, it just wasn't enough. He didn't make any big mistakes. Miami Dolphins didn't make any turnovers, but offensive line got racked for most of the game. They were dropping like flies as well. Dolphins were lost 3 or 4 players on the defensive side, and they're already a banged up defensive unit. And then you have offensive line with lost a couple of pieces as well. The Miami Dolphins were losing pieces left and right, but that's not an excuse for the performance that they put out there tonight. They just don't play in the cold. Doesn't matter to the staff. They just don't move on the cold. Now, Mike McDaniel is a great coach. He's a great play caller. He's one of the best at drawing plays up on the fly that you'll probably ever see. But again, it's what have you done for me lately? I mean, they've had a couple good seasons, but they have nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing to show for it. I'm not saying Mike McDaniel is close to being fired, because I think he just got a contract extension in the beginning of the year, but at one point, do you think about maybe we should move on? Maybe, just maybe, we should move on, because the team is just going nowhere. They're going nowhere. I mean, Tua's going to be there for a while still. They got Waddle locked up. They got Tyreek Hill locked up. Devon Chain, as long as he continues performing, he's going to get locked up. It's just, there's not a lot to look forward to for the Dolphins. I mean, as long as Josh Allen is the quarterback of the Bills are going to rule that conference, or rule that division for the foreseeable future. And there's just not a lot to look forward to. They didn't play a good game. They weren't good on defense. They weren't good on offense, despite, yes, the stats would show that, yeah, they had a good offensive performance or showing, but all they got was 17 points. Got 17 points out of that. That's all. 365 yards from Tua passing. Devon Chain has over 70 yards. Waddle has close to 60 yards. Tyreek Hill had nearly 60 yards. And all you can show for it is a measly 17 points. Jonnu Smith had 10 catches for 114 yards. And all you can muster is 17 points. It's just not good enough. The Packers' defense was great. They were great all game long. And even when they were giving up touchdowns, it got a little hairy. I mean, it was 30-11, 27-11. So it's a couple touchdowns here, and it could get a lot closer. But once the Dolphins missed on that turnover on downs at the Packers 3, it was over, because then the Packers quickly moved down the field, kicked a field goal. Then Miami Dolphins get the ball back. They're able to score a touchdown, but It was a war of attrition at that point. It was just the clock was just tick 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 tick, and just they were taking like 5-6 minutes to score 7 points. It's like you got to score faster. You got to score more. Where's the offense from a year ago where Tua was bombing it down the field to Tyreek Hill for 70-yard bombs for touchdowns? That offense is no longer here. And sure, their offensive line is definitely not the same. Their defense certainly is not the same, but the Dolphins are not a good team. Despite their three-game winning streak, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Rams, they beat the Patriots. Okay? That's like an overall record of 11-20, something like that. It's not good. They haven't played anybody good. In the games they've won, they haven't beaten anybody good. And every good team they played, they've lost to. I mean, sure, you can say the Rams are decent, but their offense when they played against the Dolphins was putrid. Absolutely awful, and only got 5 field goals. They won the game, but they didn't really have to go up against any strong opposition. The Packers were strong. 5 sacks. They definitely got to the quarterback more. There were a couple of times where Tua really got hit hard, and you kind of... There was a time where he just kind of went down on the floor for a little bit, but he got up, and it's like, oof. Every time you watch Tua get hit, you shudder. You shudder a little bit. That all of a sudden his hands are going to start flexing out, and he's going to go into that seizure type motion. It's just like, this is a scary thought. But, I mean, can you blame him? This is the one thing he loves to do. You can't blame him for going out there. You just wish he didn't do it at the cost of his own body, especially with his lengthy injury history. But Packers get the big win. Josh Jacobs has a good game. Jordan Love has a good game. Christian Watson has a couple good catches. Jayden Reed had 2 touchdowns. And Akbari had a pretty good game. Isaiah McDuffie had 10 tackles and a forced fumble. Yeah, that's right. There was the one fumble. There's the one fumble or turnover in the beginning game. Forgot. Yes, they had the one turnover. But other than that, no turnovers when the offense was on the field. But the Packers get a big win. The Packers are moving forward. They keep ahead pace with the Lions. And now is a true test. Next week on Thursday night in Detroit, Packers get that win. They're within one of the Lions, and they're tied. Well, still one game behind the Vikings because of the tiebreaker. But this Packers team can beat the Vikings. Absolutely, Minnesota. I know a lot of people out there saying, oh, you Packer fans are crazy. Oh, you're not that good. It's like, look at what we've done. Dominated the Dolphins. Dominated the 49ers. Yes. They're hurt. They were hurt. But still, they washed their demons away. They've been great. They've won 7 of 8. They've been a great team. There's no other way to say the Packers have been a great team, and they deserve all the credit. And it's nice to see at the end that Jordan Love got his 2 turkey legs. Josh Jacobs got in it. Isaiah McDuffie. I mean, that looked like a good spread. The turducken, of course. You got mac and cheese. You got a couple other things. You got pie. I mean, what could be better than all those things on Thanksgiving? And then Josh Jacobs carrying off the turducken and everything else to the locker room for the rest of the teammates. That's just great to see. This team plays with heart, they play together, and more importantly, they play well on both sides of the ball. And lately, they've been keeping the turnovers down, and better yet, they've finally been able to get to the quarterback, which is a great thing to see. If there was one thing you could criticize the Packers defense for, is not being able to get to the quarterback, but they have been able to do so, and they've looked great doing it. And now the Packers are 9-3, going into Detroit next week against the Lions. It's going to be a great game. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Packers win. Packers defend the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are hanging by a thread in the playoff race. The Dolphins are basically one loss away from being completely out of it. Like, literally, they go 5-8. Even winning out wouldn't get them a playoff bid. It would take so much for them to get there. The Dolphins basically have to win out, and I just don't think they're going to do it. Yes, they got 2 games against the Jets, but they still got to play the 49ers. They still got to play the Browns. They got 3 games in the cold weather. It's going to be a tough road for the Dolphins then. Tonight was a must-win for them, and they failed in every category, every way. But the Packers shine through. That's all that matters. Packers win. Dolphins lose. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Have a great day. Go Pack Go, and as always, God bless.